My uncle was selling videos of me and my sister online while babysitting us, so we gathered evidence and got him arrested. A year later, his girlfriend tried to destroy our case by pretending to help us. I was fast asleep at 2 a.m. when I heard the door creak open. When I turned around, I saw Uncle Larry. Well, 6-year-old me thought he was just coming in for nighttime cuddles, so I opened my arms super wide and got ready for my hug. He hugged me back, his hands staying on my tiny self for way too long. I had no warning for what was to come, other than the smell of beer on his breath and the way he staggered all over the walls. What happened next is something I still get nightmares about. When he was done with me, he walked out and went to sleep next door. I was forced to listen as he snored all night long, all while I was trembling in my bed, barely able to move. The next morning, when my 13-year-old sister came in to wake me up for school, she was faced with me lying in bed clutching a pillow. There was still red on my trousers and cuts all over my arms. "Did you get your period already?" she asked, completely oblivious. I stayed silent and watched as the cogs turned in her head. Up until this point, Uncle Larry had been abusing us almost every day. It was always when our dad was working his night shifts. Despite his threats, one night my sister Daisy went to Dad and told him what was going on. We listened as he called Uncle Larry and put him on speakerphone. His voice roared with anger, echoing all over the walls. Uncle Larry sounded like he was trembling and swore to never do it again. But that night, the second my dad left to go work construction, Larry came back. "Your precious father couldn't afford a babysitter, so I'm here to stay." From there, Uncle Larry learned that he could take advantage of us anytime he wanted. So stealing my innocence didn't even seem that bad compared to the stuff he had done. But as I sat there crying while Daisy held me, she promised it would never happen again. I didn't believe her, because I knew there was no way our dad would let us stay home alone all night without an adult. But when Uncle Larry came over the next day, he didn't come into my room. In fact, he didn't go near me at all. It was like Daisy had waved some sort of magic wand. I was relieved, and figured that Uncle Larry must have had some sort of turnaround or something. But as time passed, I noticed something. Larry's bed was always empty at night, but all his stuff was home. I could never find him anywhere, until one night, when I had a bad dream. I burst open my sister's door to find her and Uncle Larry making out on her bed. Bile rose in my throat. I immediately ran over and started to slap him. "Why can't you leave my sissy alone?" I screamed again and again. Uncle Larry raised his hand to strike me, but that's when Daisy picked me up and locked me outside. That night, I couldn't sleep. In my childlike mind, I thought that maybe Daisy had a crush on him or something. But 2 hours later, I got my answer, because that's when I heard a knock on my bedroom door. It wasn't Larry. It was Daisy. She came in and threatened me. "If you ever tell Dad, I will ruin your life." It was the first time Daisy had said anything mean to me. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She walked out without saying a word. So for years, I kept it a secret. Daisy told our dad that she loved having Larry around, so he stayed over for weeks. Weeks turned into months, months into years. And before I knew it, I was 10 years old, and Uncle Larry was still coming over. It was always the same routine. They waited till they thought I was asleep, went into Daisy's room together, and made weird animalistic noises together. But one night, it stopped, because Daisy moved out to a nearby college and invited me to stay with her. Well, she was still my best friend, so I said yes. She was in class one day when I saw a notebook peeking out under her bed. So like any sane little sister, I picked it up and read it. Most of it was boring, about her classroom crushes or the food she liked, but then I saw it. The reason why Uncle Larry stopped his abuse. The reason why Daisy pretended to love him. The day after she had found out what happened to me, she told Larry to do it to her instead. The deal was that as long as he never laid a hand on me again, he could do whatever he wanted with her. And when he refused on the grounds of preferring youthful girls, she promised to only speak well of him to our dad, and he took it. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My hands shook as I turned the pages, each entry making my stomach twist tighter. Daisy had documented everything, dates and times when Uncle Larry came over, what he did, how she protected me by sacrificing herself. The notebook slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. I picked it up and kept reading, finding newer entries from just last week. That's when I discovered something that made my blood run cold. Uncle Larry had been blackmailing our father with fabricated evidence of workplace theft. Daisy had overheard Larry on the phone, bragging to someone about how he'd planted tools in Dad's truck and taken photos, threatening to send them to Dad's boss unless he kept Larry as our caretaker. The apartment door opened and Daisy walked in, dropping her backpack when she saw me with her journal. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She rushed over and snatched the notebook from my hands, but it was too late. I'd seen everything. "You weren't supposed to find that," she whispered, sinking onto her bed. "Why didn't you tell me?" My voice cracked. "All these years, I thought you actually liked him." Daisy's shoulders started shaking. She covered her face with her hands and broke down completely, sobbing so hard her whole body trembled. I'd never seen my sister cry like this before. I climbed onto the bed and wrapped my arms around her, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. "I've been trying to protect you," she choked out between sobs, "but it's not enough. He's getting worse." She wiped her eyes and looked at me with a determination I'd never seen before. "I've been secretly recording Larry's conversations. Every time he comes over, I hide my phone and record everything. I'm trying to find evidence we can use against him." My eyes widened. "You have recordings?" She nodded and pulled out her phone, showing me dozens of audio files. "But it's not enough. We need something concrete, something that proves what he's been doing. What if we search his stuff?" The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "He's at the bar right now. Won't be back for hours." Daisy bit her lip, considering. Then she stood up, a new energy in her movements. "Let's do it." We hurried back to our house using Daisy's key to get in. The familiar smell of stale beer and cigarettes hit us immediately. Uncle Larry's room was a mess. Clothes thrown everywhere. Empty bottles lined up on the dresser. We started searching through drawers, under the bed, in the closet. "Found something," Daisy called from the closet. She pulled out a small black device. "Is this a camera?" My skin crawled as we examined it. The memory card was full of videos, and when Daisy connected it to her laptop, we both gasped. There were hundreds of files, all with dates going back years. Videos of us in our rooms, in the bathroom, everywhere we thought we were safe. "Oh my God," Daisy breathed, her face turning green. "He's been filming us this whole time." We kept searching and found more cameras, more memory cards. Then Daisy discovered something even worse on his laptop, which he'd stupidly left unlocked. There were emails, transactions, usernames on sites I didn't recognize. "He's been selling them," Daisy said, her voice hollow. "The videos. He's been selling them online." I felt like I might throw up. Daisy's fingers flew across the keyboard, taking screenshots of everything. Then she found his bank statements, huge deposits followed by even bigger withdrawals. Gambling sites, casino charges, loan shark payments. "He owes so much money," she muttered. "That's why he won't leave us alone." alone. He needs the money from selling these. The front door slammed. We both froze. Heavy footsteps stumbled through the living room. Uncle Larry was home early. Quick, pretend you're sick, Daisy hissed, shoving the laptop under the bed. Keep him distracted while I hide this stuff. I ran to the bathroom and made retching sounds, splashing water loudly. Uncle Larry's footsteps approached. What are you doing here? His words slurred together. I felt sick at school, I called out weakly. Daisy brought me home. He grunted and stumbled toward his room. I heard Daisy's voice trying to sound casual, then a crash. I ran out to find Larry gripping Daisy's wrist, the laptop on the floor between them. You little sneak, he snarled. Going through my things? Daisy tried to pull away, but he held tight. Let go of me. You think you're so smart? His face twisted with rage. I'll show your father these videos, but I'll edit them first. Make it look like you two are lying about everything. He'll never believe you. My mind raced. Dad's number was on speed dial. I grabbed the kitchen phone and pressed it, pretending to order pizza. Hi, I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza for delivery. I kept the phone hidden behind my back, leaving the line open. Shut up, Larry shouted at me, still gripping Daisy. No pizza. And you, he turned back to Daisy, are going to give me those screenshots you took. Then you're going to forget this ever happened. Never, Daisy spat. Larry raised his hand and Daisy flinched. That's when we heard tires screeching outside. Dad's truck roared into the driveway. Larry's eyes went wide with panic. He shoved Daisy away and grabbed for his laptop, trying to delete files. Get in your room, he barked at us. Both of you, now. He herded us into Daisy's room and locked the door from the outside. We heard him racing around, grabbing things, cursing under his breath. The front door burst open. Where are my daughters? Dad's voice boomed through the house. They're fine, Larry called back. Just in their room, doing homework. Daisy grabbed my hand. The floorboard, she whispered. Remember when we were kids and found that loose board? We dropped to our knees and pried up the board in the corner. Inside the hollow space were several USB drives and external hard drives. Daisy's eyes widened. He's been hiding backups here, she breathed. He must have put them here months ago. We heard shouting from the living room, Dad's voice getting angrier. Larry was trying to talk his way out, making excuses. Daisy grabbed an old camcorder from her closet, one of those ancient things from when we were babies. It still works, she said, checking the battery. We need him to confess on camera. She handed me the camcorder and took a deep breath. Larry, she called through the door. I'll make you a deal. The fighting stopped. Footsteps approached our door. The lock clicked and Larry peered in, suspicious. What deal? He asked warily. I'll give you back everything I found, Daisy said, making her voice sound defeated. All the screenshots, all the evidence. And we won't tell Dad anything, but you have to promise to leave us alone forever. Larry's eyes narrowed, but I could see him considering it. Behind Daisy's dresser, I held the camcorder steady, recording everything. And why would you do that? He asked. Because I know you'll ruin our lives if we don't, Daisy said. You've been recording us for years, selling videos of little girls online. You've been blackmailing our father with fake evidence. You forced me to do things so you wouldn't hurt my sister. Smart girl, Larry smirked, stepping fully into the room. Yeah, I've got enough material to destroy your whole family. Your dad goes to jail for theft. You two get put in foster care, and those videos, they're already out there, sweetheart. Thousands of people have seen them. So you admit it? Daisy pressed. Everything? Of course I admit it, Larry laughed. What are you going to do about it? I own you, both of you. And your stupid father is too trusting to ever figure it out. That's when Dad appeared in the doorway behind Larry, his face a mask of pure rage. Next to him stood Aunt Margaret, who worked as a social worker. Her phone was out, recording everything. Larry spun around, his face draining of color. He tried to bolt past them, but I'd strategically placed my backpack in the doorway earlier. He tripped spectacularly, crashing face first into the hallway floor. Don't move, Aunt Margaret said calmly, already on her phone with someone. Police are on their way. Dad stepped over Larry's groaning form and pulled us both into the tightest hug. His whole body shook as he held us. I'm so sorry, he kept repeating. I'm so sorry. I should have known. I should have protected you. The police arrived within minutes. They found everything on Larry's devices, the cameras, the videos, the evidence of blackmail. One officer specialized in computer crimes and said they'd be able to trace where the videos were uploaded and work on getting them removed. As they led Larry away in handcuffs, he tried one last manipulation. They're lying. These girls are troubled. I was trying to help them, but the evidence spoke for itself. The recordings, the cameras, his own confession on video. He was going away for a long time. The days after Larry's arrest blurred together in a haze of police interviews and social worker visits. Dad took time off work to stay home with us, something he'd never been able to do before. We thought the nightmare was finally over. We were wrong. It started with small things. Phone calls where nobody spoke on the other end. Pizza deliveries we never ordered showing up at odd hours. Dad changed our phone number, installed new locks, even put up security cameras around the house. We tried to settle into some kind of normal routine. 3 weeks after the arrest, I was doing homework at the kitchen table when Daisy burst through the front door, her face white as paper. She grabbed my shoulders, checking me over frantically. Are you okay? Did anyone come here? Did anyone talk to you? No. What's wrong? I pulled away from her grip, confused by her panic. She collapsed into a chair, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. Someone left this in my locker at school. She showed me a printed photo of us walking to school that morning, taken from across the street. Written on the back in familiar handwriting were the words, Larry has friends. Dad called the police immediately. They increased patrols around our house and the school. The detective assigned to our case, a kind woman named Officer Rodriguez, sat us down in the living room. Larry's being held without bail, she explained. But we need to be careful. He had connections through those websites where he was selling content. Some of these people might try to intimidate you before the trial. Trial. The word made my stomach churn. We'd have to face him again, tell strangers what happened. Daisy squeezed my hand under the table. That night, I woke to the sound of breaking glass. Dad was already running down the hall, baseball bat in hand. Someone had thrown a brick through our living room window. Tied to it was another note. Drop the charges. We spent the rest of the night at Aunt Margaret's house. She lived in a gated community with security guards, which made Dad feel better. But I could see the strain wearing on him. Dark circles formed under his eyes. He jumped at every sound. Maybe we should move, he said over breakfast, staring into his coffee. Start fresh somewhere new. We can't run, Daisy said firmly. That's what they want. We have to see this through. Aunt Margaret nodded. I've seen this before in my work. These people count on fear to silence victims. But you're not alone. We have resources. She arranged for us to stay at a safe house temporarily. A normal-looking home in a quiet neighborhood where other families in similar situations had stayed. The address wasn't listed anywhere. We couldn't tell anyone where we were, not even our closest friends. School became complicated. Dad drove us there and picked us up every day. No exceptions. We couldn't stay for after-school activities. I I watched my classmates playing on the playground while I waited inside the principal's office for Dad to arrive. One afternoon, the school secretary handed me an envelope. "Someone left this for you at the front desk, sweetie." Inside was a USB drive and a note. "Your sister isn't as innocent as you think." I shoved it in my backpack, my heart pounding. When I showed Daisy later, she went very still. "Don't plug it in," she said. "It could have viruses or tracking software. We'll give it to Officer Rodriguez." But I couldn't stop thinking about it. What did they mean about Daisy? That night, while everyone slept, I crept to Dad's laptop and inserted the USB drive. I had to know. The drive contained videos, but not what I expected. They were security camera footage from various stores and restaurants around town. In each one, I could see Daisy meeting with a man I didn't recognize. They sat close together, talking intensely. In one video, he handed her an envelope. My hands trembled as I clicked through more files. There were text messages too, screenshots of conversations between Daisy and this stranger. My eyes widened as I read them. They were discussing money, large amounts of money. "What are you doing?" Daisy's voice made me jump. She stood in the doorway, her face a mixture of anger and fear. "Who is he?" I demanded, turning the laptop toward her. "Why were you meeting with him?" Daisy closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. Then she sat down next to me. "His name is Marcus. He was one of Larry's customers." The room seemed to spin. "What?" "He contacted me a few months ago," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Said he felt guilty about what he'd done. He wanted to help us. He's been giving me information about Larry's operation, names of other people involved. You've been meeting with someone who—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "He's different," Daisy insisted. "He's trying to make amends. He gave me evidence that helped the police build their case." I stared at her in disbelief. How could you trust him? How could you meet with him alone? I was careful, always in public places, and I recorded everything, just like with Larry. She pulled out her phone, showing me dozens of audio files. Marcus gave me names, websites, even bank account information. The police have it all now. Does Dad know? Daisy shook her head. "I couldn't tell him. He's been through enough. And Marcus, he's been getting threats too. Some of Larry's other associates found out he was helping us." As if on cue, Daisy's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Marcus won't be helping anymore." We looked at each other, fear creeping up our spines. Daisy immediately called Marcus's number. It went straight to voicemail. The next morning, Officer Rodriguez came to the safe house with grim news. Marcus had been found struck in an alley behind his apartment. He was alive, but in critical condition. "This changes things," she said. "We're going to need to move you to a different location. And Daisy, I need to know everything about your contact with Marcus." Daisy handed over her phone with all the recordings. As Officer Rodriguez listened to them, her expression grew increasingly serious. "This is bigger than we thought," she said finally. "Marcus gave you names of people in positions of power, people who won't want this information coming out." Dad's face was thunderous. "You've been meeting with a predator? Behind my back?" "He was trying to help," Daisy protested. "And it worked. We have so much more evidence now. Evidence that nearly got you called." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "What if they'd grabbed you instead of Marcus?" The argument continued, but I tuned it out. Something was bothering me about the videos on the USB drive. I asked Officer Rodriguez if I could see them again. "Why?" she asked, but pulled out her laptop. I studied the footage carefully this time. "Look at the timestamp on this one," I said, pointing to the screen. "This was taken the day after Larry was arrested. But look at Daisy's clothes." Officer Rodriguez leaned in closer. "What about them?" "She's wearing her winter coat, but it was warm that week. I remember because we had PE outside." I clicked to another video. "And here, this restaurant closed down 6 months ago. I know because it was my favorite place for milkshakes." Officer Rodriguez's eyes sharpened. She pulled out her phone immediately. "I need a tech team at the safe house. Now." Within an hour, computer experts were examining the USB drive. They discovered what I had suspected. The videos were fake. Sophisticated deepfakes created using photos from Daisy's social media accounts. "Someone's trying to discredit your testimony," Officer Rodriguez explained. "Make it look like Daisy was involved in something shady. This is professional work." "But if the videos were fake, what about Marcus?" Officer Rodriguez made some calls and discovered that while there was indeed a Marcus in the hospital, he had no connection to Larry's case. He was just a random assault victim whose identity had been used for the deception. "Then who was Daisy meeting with?" Dad asked. Daisy's face had gone pale. She pulled out her phone with trembling fingers, going through the recordings she'd made. As we listened to them with fresh ears, Officer Rodriguez's expression grew increasingly alarmed. "These conversations, they're getting information from you," she said. "About the case, about your routines, your plans. Daisy, you've been talking to someone working with Larry's associates." The full horror of it hit us. For months, Daisy had been manipulated into revealing information to the very people we were hiding from. They knew about the safe house, our schedules, everything. "We need to move, now," Officer Rodriguez said. We threw our essentials into bags, preparing to leave immediately. But as we headed for the door, Dad's phone rang. He answered it, his face immediately going white. "That was my boss," he said slowly. "Someone sent him an anonymous package. Photos that make it look like I stole equipment from work sites. Fake invoices with my signature. He's suspending me pending an investigation." Larry's words echoed in my mind. "I'll destroy your whole family." Even from jail, he was making good on his threat. Or rather, his associates were. We relocated to a new safe house that night, this one even further from our normal lives. Officer Rodriguez assigned round-the-clock protection. The trial was still weeks away, and it felt like the walls were closing in. Daisy barely spoke for days, crushed by the realization that she'd been tricked. I found her one night sitting by the window, staring out at the street. "I thought I was being smart," she said when I sat beside her, "recording everything, gathering evidence, but they played me." "You were trying to protect us," I said. "Just like always." She shook her head. "I put us in more danger. Dad might lose his job. Marcus, the real Marcus, is hurt because they used his identity, and we still have to face Larry in court. Together," I reminded her. "We'll face him together." The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Ms. Chen, worked with us on our testimony. She was kind but honest about what to expect. "Larry's lawyer will try to discredit you," she warned. "They'll bring up the fake videos, the false meetings, anything to make the jury doubt your story. You need to be prepared for that." We practiced over and over, going through the questions they might ask. Dad sat through every session, his jaw clenched as he heard the details again and again. Meanwhile, the harassment continued. Dad's boss received more fake evidence. Someone called Child Protective Services with anonymous complaints about our living situation. Daisy's college received an email claiming she'd cheated on her entrance exams. Each attack was proven false, but the damage accumulated. Dad struggled to find work with the suspension on his record. We burned through savings paying for lawyers and security measures. The stress showed on all our faces. One evening, Officer Rodriguez arrived with unexpected news. news. We arrested someone today, she said. A woman named Patricia. She's the one who was posing as Marcus, meeting with Daisy. Patricia, it turned out, was Larry's girlfriend. None of us even knew he had one. She'd been managing his online activities, handling the money from the video sales. When he was arrested, she'd taken over trying to intimidate us into dropping the charges. She's agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence, Officer Rodriguez continued. She's providing passwords, financial records, names of buyers. This is huge for our case. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope, but Daisy remained withdrawn, barely eating or sleeping as the trial date approached. I found her one night in the bathroom, scissors in hand, chunks of her long hair on the floor. "What are you doing?" I gasped. "I can't stand it," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Every time I look in the mirror, I see the girl in those videos, the girl everyone has seen. I need to be someone else." I took the scissors from her gently. "Let me help." I evened out the choppy cuts she'd made, giving her a short pixie cut that actually looked pretty good. When I finished, she stared at her reflection for a long moment. "I look different," she said softly. "You look like a survivor," I told her. "Someone who's been through hell and came out fighting." She hugged me then, crying into my shoulder like she had that day when I first found her journal. We stayed like that for a long time, holding each other up the way we always had. The trial began on a cold Monday morning. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble floors and high ceilings. Protesters stood outside with signs, some supporting us, others claiming Larry was innocent. We entered through a side door to avoid them. The first days were procedural, jury selection, and opening statements. Larry sat at the defense table in a suit, looking nothing like the disheveled hammered who'd terrorized us. His lawyer, Mr. Brennan, was a silver-haired man with cold eyes who objected to everything. When it came time for testimony, the prosecutor called me first. My legs shook as I walked to the witness stand. The bailiff swore me in, and then I was facing a room full of strangers, telling them the worst moments of my life. Ms. Chen guided me through the questions gently but thoroughly. I described that night when I was 6, the years of abuse, finding Daisy's journal. My voice cracked several times, but I kept going. Then came the cross-examination. Mr. Brennan stood up, adjusting his tie. "You say you were 6 when this alleged abuse occurred," he began. "That's quite young. How can you be sure your memories are accurate?" "Because I still have nightmares about it," I replied. He pressed on, questioning every detail, trying to find inconsistencies. He brought up the fake videos, the meetings with Marcus, implying our family was involved in some elaborate scheme. "Isn't it true that your sister met repeatedly with a man she believed bought illegal content? She thought he was trying to help us," I said firmly. "But she accepted money from him?" "Information. She accepted information to help the police." It went on for hours. By the time I stepped down, I was exhausted and shaking, but I told the truth, and that had to count for something. Daisy's testimony was even harder to watch. She broke down multiple times describing the deal she'd made with Larry, sacrificing herself to protect me. The courtroom was silent except for her sobs as she detailed years of abuse. Mr. Brennan was ruthless with her, bringing up the fake meetings, the recordings, trying to paint her as a manipulative liar. But Daisy held her ground, her new short hair making her look fierce and determined. "I did what I had to do to protect my sister," she said, looking directly at the jury, "and I would do it again." Dad testified about the blackmail, how Larry had threatened his job to maintain access to us. His voice shook with rage as he described finding out what had been happening under his own roof. Then came the technical evidence. Computer experts testified about the videos found on Larry's devices, the websites where they were sold, the financial transactions. Officer Rodriguez presented the evidence from Patricia, showing the whole operation in damning detail. The defense's case was weak in comparison. They tried to argue that the videos were planted, that Patricia was lying to save herself, that we were a troubled family making false accusations. But the evidence was overwhelming. Larry himself took the stand on the last day, against his lawyer's advice. He tried to play the victim, claiming he was just trying to help a struggling family, that we'd misunderstood his intentions. "I loved those girls like they were my own," he said, "and I thought Dad might leap over the gallery railing." Ms. Chen destroyed him on cross-examination. She played his recorded confession from Daisy's camcorder, his own voice admitting to everything. She showed financial records proving he'd been selling videos for years. By the time she finished, Larry's mask had slipped, revealing the monster underneath. Closing arguments were passionate on both sides. Mr. Brennan made one last attempt to create reasonable doubt, but Ms. Chen methodically laid out the evidence, piece by damning piece. The jury deliberated for 2 days, 2 days of agony, waiting by the phone, unable to eat or sleep. When the call finally came, we rushed back to the courthouse. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" the judge asked. "We have, Your Honor." My heart pounded as the foreman stood. Guilty. Guilty on all counts. Production of illegal content involving minors, distribution, blackmail, assault. The list went on and on. Larry's face crumpled as each verdict was read. For the first time, he looked like the pathetic creature he really was. No more power over us. No more control. Sentencing came a month later. The judge, a stern woman who'd seen too many cases like ours, didn't mince words. "Mr. Larry Henderson, you have been found guilty of heinous crimes against children placed in your care. You betrayed the trust of a family, caused immeasurable harm, and profited from the suffering of innocence. I hereby sentence you to 45 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole." 45 years. He'd die in prison. As they led him away in shackles, he turned to look at us one last time, but we didn't flinch. We'd won. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Dad tried to shield us, but Daisy stepped forward. "We want to thank everyone who supported us," she said clearly. "And to anyone else going through something similar, you're not alone. Speak up, fight back. The truth matters." Her words would later be picked up by advocacy groups, but in that moment, they were just my big sister being brave one more time. The ride home was quiet. We were exhausted, emotionally drained, but also somehow lighter. The boogeyman who'd haunted our lives was gone, locked away where he couldn't hurt anyone else. "I'm proud of you both," Dad said finally. So incredibly proud. We drove past our old house, still empty with a for sale sign in the yard. Too many bad memories there. But Aunt Margaret had helped us find a new place, a fresh start in a different neighborhood. As we pulled into the driveway of our new home, I noticed something different about Daisy. The haunted look that had lived in her eyes for so long was fading. She wasn't healed, might never be completely, but she was on her way. That night, for the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. No more checking locks, no more jumping at shadows. Larry was gone, and we were still standing. The next morning, over pancakes that Dad made in fun shapes like when we were little, we talked about the future. Daisy would go back to college. Dad had a lead on a new job. I could finally join the after-school art club I'd been wanting to try. Normal things, regular family things, the life Larry had tried to steal from us. We should do something with our story, Daisy said suddenly. Help other families recognize the signs, know they're not alone. Dad nodded slowly. When you're ready, both of you, no rush. And so began our real recovery. Not the frantic survival mode we'd been in, but actual healing. Therapy helped, individual and family sessions where we learned to process what had happened. Some days were harder than others. Triggers could come from unexpected places. A smell, a sound, a stranger who looked too much like Larry. But we faced them together, the way we always had. 6 months after the trial, we attended a support group for survivors. The room was full of people with stories like ours, some still fighting for justice, others learning to live with their truth. Daisy and I shared our story, the whole messy, painful truth of it, how she'd sacrificed herself for me, how we'd fought back, how we'd won. The thing about predators, Daisy said to the group, is they count on shame to keep us silent, but shame is theirs, not ours. We survived. That makes us warriors. After the meeting, a young girl approached us, maybe 13 or 14. She reminded me of myself at that age, scared but trying to be brave. My uncle, she started, then stopped, tears in her eyes. We believe you, Daisy said immediately, taking the girl's hands, and you're not alone. We stayed with her until her mother arrived, giving them resources, phone numbers, hope. It was the first of many such conversations we would have over the years, because that's what you do when you survive something like this. You reach back and help others climb out of their own darkness. You become the voice that says, I believe you, and it's not your fault, and you can get through this. Larry had tried to destroy us, to use our love for each other as a weapon, but that love had saved us instead. Daisy's sacrifice, Dad's fierce protection once he knew the truth, my refusal to let the secret stay buried, it all mattered. The week after we got back from the courthouse, Patricia's lawyer contacted Officer Rodriguez. She wanted to meet with us, claimed she had more information that could help. Dad was against it, but Daisy and I needed answers. We met her at the county jail, sitting across from her through thick glass. Patricia looked nothing like I'd imagined. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with tired eyes and chipped nail polish. I know what you think of me, she started, her voice crackling through the phone, but I need you to understand something. Larry had dirt on me too. She explained how she'd met Larry at a casino, how he'd seemed charming at first, then she'd gotten into debt, and he'd offered to help. The help came with strings attached. Before she knew it, she was managing his online operations, trapped by her own poor choices and his threats. There's a storage unit, she said, glancing nervously at the guard. Unit 47B at the place on Maple Street. Larry kept physical copies of everything there. Photos, drives, client lists. He was paranoid about losing his leverage. Officer Rodriguez got a warrant that afternoon. The storage unit was exactly where Patricia said it would be, packed with boxes of evidence. Not just about us, but about dozens of other families Larry had targeted over the years. This is huge, Officer Rodriguez told us later. We're looking at multiple victims across 3 states. Your case is going to help all of them. The discovery triggered a larger investigation. Other families started coming forward, emboldened by our story. Dad's phone rang constantly with calls from detectives in different jurisdictions. Meanwhile, we were trying to rebuild our lives. Dad's boss finally cleared him after the investigation proved the evidence was fabricated, but the damage to his reputation lingered. He took a lower-paying job at a smaller company, grateful just to be working again. Daisy struggled to catch up in her classes. The stress of everything had caused her grades to slip, and she was in danger of losing her scholarship. She stayed up late every night, determined not to let Larry steal her future too. I went back to school, but everything felt different. Kids whispered when I walked by. Someone had leaked details about the case, and suddenly everyone knew. The principal called Dad in for a meeting, suggesting maybe I should transfer to a different school for a fresh start. Absolutely not, Dad said firmly. She's not running from anything. She didn't do anything wrong. But the whispers continued. One day, I found a note in my locker. Everyone knows what happened to you. My hands shook as I crumpled it up. That afternoon, a girl named Theo approached me at lunch. She was new to school, quiet, kept to herself mostly. I heard about your uncle, she said softly, sitting down beside me. My stepdad did the same thing. Nobody believed me until he got caught with another kid. We sat together in silence for a while, 2 kids who understood each other without needing to explain. Theo became my first real friend since everything happened, someone who didn't look at me with pity or curiosity. Daisy noticed the change in me, how I was starting to smile again. She was dealing with her own challenges. The fake Marcus situation had shaken her confidence badly. She second-guessed every interaction, worried about being deceived again. One evening, she got a call from an unknown number. Her whole body tensed as she answered it. But it wasn't a threat this time. It was a woman named Greta, who ran a local advocacy center. I saw your statement after the trial, Greta explained. We're starting a mentorship program for survivors. Would you be interested in getting involved? Daisy's eyes lit up for the first time in months. She met with Greta the next week, learning about the program. They needed people who could relate to what victims were going through, who could offer hope from the other side. I want to do it, Daisy told us over dinner. I want to help kids like us. Dad smiled, reaching across to squeeze her hand. We were finding our way forward, slowly but surely. The investigation into Larry's network continued to expand. Officer Rodriguez kept us updated when she could. They'd identified over 40 victims so far, some going back 15 years. Larry had been careful, moving between states, using different identities. We found something else, Rodriguez told us during one visit. Larry had a partner we didn't know about, someone who helped him identify vulnerable families. My blood ran cold. Who? We're still investigating, but it looks like someone in the child welfare system. Someone who had access to family situations, knew which kids were vulnerable. The betrayal felt fresh all over again. Someone whose job was to protect children had been feeding them to Larry instead. A few weeks later, they arrested a social worker named Theodore. He'd been flagging families where parents worked night shifts, single parents struggling financially, kids who were already showing signs of trauma. Larry would swoop in as the helpful relative or family friend. Theodore's arrest made the news. Suddenly, our case wasn't just about Larry anymore. It was about systemic failures, about predators in positions of trust. Reporters started calling again, wanting interviews. No, Dad said firmly each time. My daughters have been through enough. But Daisy felt differently. Maybe we should talk to them, she suggested one night, not for sensationalism, but to warn other families, to show them the signs. We had a family meeting about it. In the end, we agreed to one interview with a serious journalist who focused on child safety issues. No faces on camera, voices altered, but our story told accurately. The interview aired on a Tuesday night. We sat together on the couch, holding hands as we watched ourselves tell the truth to thousands of strangers. When it ended, Dad was crying. I'm so proud of you both, he said, pulling us close. So incredibly proud. The response was overwhelming. overwhelming. Emails poured in from other survivors, from parents who recognized warning signs in their own lives, from people who just wanted to offer support. Daisy spent hours responding to each one. One email stood out. It was from a woman whose daughter had been one of Larry's victims years ago. She'd never come forward, too afraid and ashamed. But seeing our story gave her the courage to contact police. "You saved my daughter," she wrote. "She's been carrying this alone for so long. Now she knows she's not alone." Officer Rodriguez called with updates on the case against Theodore. He was trying to make a deal, offering names of others involved in exchange for a lighter sentence. The network was bigger than anyone had imagined. "There's going to be a task force," Rodriguez explained. "Multiple agencies working together. Your case started all of this. You should be proud." But pride was complicated. We were glad other kids would be protected, but the cost had been so high. Some nights I still woke up in a panic. Sure, I could hear Larry's footsteps in the hall. Daisy started working with Greta's advocacy center, just a few hours a week at first. She helped design safety programs for schools, teaching kids about body autonomy and trusted adults. Watching her find purpose in her pain was inspiring. Dad threw himself into being present for us. No more night shifts, no more leaving us with anyone else. He joined a support group for parents of abused children, learning how to help us heal. The legal proceedings dragged on. Theodore's case was complex, involving multiple jurisdictions. More arrests followed as he gave up names. Each one felt like a small victory, another predator who couldn't hurt anyone else. Patricia was sentenced to 5 years, with possibility of parole in 3. It seemed light considering her involvement, but her cooperation had been crucial. She wrote us a letter from prison, apologizing again, hoping we could forgive her someday. "Maybe someday," Daisy said, folding the letter carefully, "but not today." We moved forward day by day. I joined the art club I'd wanted to try, finding peace in painting. My art teacher, Mrs. Chen's sister actually, noticed I painted a lot of dark scenes at first. Gradually, more light crept into my work. Theo and I became inseparable. Having a friend who truly understood made school bearable. We didn't talk about our trauma often, but knowing it was there, a shared understanding, made everything easier. One day, Principal Brennan called me to his office. My heart raced, worried I was in trouble, but he just wanted to tell me how proud he was of my courage. "You've changed things here," he said. "Teachers are more aware now. We've implemented new safety protocols. You did that." Daisy got her grades back up and kept her scholarship. She changed her major to social work, inspired by her experience with the advocacy center. "I want to be the person I needed when I was 13, she explained. The storage unit evidence led to more arrests, more families getting justice. Officer Rodriguez became a regular presence in our lives, checking in even when there were no updates. She'd become more than just a detective to us. One afternoon, she brought unexpected news. "Remember the real Marcus? The man in the hospital?" We nodded, guilt still heavy about his involvement. "He wants to meet you. He's recovered and, well, he has something to say." The meeting was surreal. Marcus was older than I'd expected, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He'd been attacked because of mistaken identity, but he didn't blame us. "I followed your case," he said. "What you girls did was incredible. I have daughters myself. I can't imagine." He donated a substantial amount to Greta's advocacy center in our names. It would fund programs for years to come. Sometimes good people appeared in unexpected ways. As the 1-year anniversary of Larry's arrest approached, we felt the weight of it. The nightmares had faded but weren't gone. The hypervigilance remained. Healing wasn't linear, we'd learned. "We should do something," Daisy suggested. "Mark the day somehow. Reclaim it." We decided to volunteer at the advocacy center that day, sharing our story with new survivors. The room was full of scared faces, people at the beginning of their journey. "It gets better," Daisy told them. "Not easier, but better. You learn to carry it differently." After the meeting, Greta pulled us aside. "I have a proposition. We're expanding the program to other cities. I need someone to help coordinate it. Daisy, would you be interested?" Daisy's face lit up. It would mean taking a semester off school, but the opportunity to help build something meaningful was worth it. "Yes," she said immediately. "Absolutely yes." Dad worried about her taking time off school, but he supported her decision. "Follow your path," he told her. "Degrees can wait. This work matters." I was proud of my sister, but scared to face school without her nearby. She'd been my rock through everything. Now I had to learn to stand on my own. "You're stronger than you know," she told me the night before she left. "You always have been." The expansion project took Daisy to different cities, meeting with local organizations, training volunteers. She called every night, sharing stories of the people she met, the programs taking shape. Meanwhile, I focused on my own healing. Art became my outlet, therapy my foundation. Dad and I grew closer, learning to communicate without Daisy as our buffer. One day, Dad surprised me after school. "Pack a bag," he said. "We're taking a trip." He drove us to the beach, somewhere we'd gone as a family before everything changed. We walked along the sand, not talking much, just being together. "I've been thinking," he said finally, "about forgiveness. Not for Larry, never for him, but for myself, for not protecting you girls better." "Dad, it wasn't your fault," I said, taking his hand. "You didn't know." "I should have known," he replied, "but I'm learning to live with that, to do better going forward." We built sand castles like we used to, letting the waves wash them away. There was something healing about creating something temporary, beautiful in its impermanence. Back home, a letter waited from Daisy. She'd met a survivor in Chicago who'd started a theater program, using drama to help kids process trauma. "It's amazing," she wrote. "Watching them act out their stories, take control of the narrative. I'm learning so much." The work was changing her. I could hear it in her voice during our calls, see it in the photos she sent. She was becoming the warrior she'd always been, just more visible now. Theodore's trial began that spring. We had to testify again, describing how Larry had accessed us. It was easier this time, knowing we'd already faced him down. Theodore looked smaller somehow, just a pathetic man who'd sold out children for money. He was convicted on multiple counts, sentenced to 20 years, another victory, another step toward justice. But we knew there were others out there, still operating in shadows. That's why the work matters, Greta told us. Education, awareness, empowerment. We can't catch them all, but we can make it harder for them to operate. Daisy came home for the trial, bringing stories of programs starting in 6 cities. The advocacy center model was spreading, creating networks of support across state lines. "We did this," she told me one night, looking through photos of the different centers. "Our story started this movement. It was humbling and empowering at once. Our pain had become purpose, reaching far beyond what we'd imagined." As sophomore year ended, I faced a choice. There was an art program in the city where Daisy was working, a chance to develop my skills while staying close to her. Or I could stay home, continue the life I'd built with Dad and Theo. "What do you want?" Dad asked. "Not what you think we want. What do you want?" I wanted both, the safety of home and the adventure of something new. But I was learning you couldn't live in 2 places at once. Theo Leo helped me decide. We'll still be friends wherever you go, she said. Real friendship doesn't need proximity. So I applied to the art program, got accepted, made plans to move. Dad helped me pack, trying not to cry. You'll always have a home here, he reminded me. The night before I left, we had a family dinner. Aunt Margaret came, Officer Rodriguez too. Even Greta joined us. Our chosen family, the people who'd stood by us through hell. To survival, Daisy toasted, raising her glass of juice. To healing, Dad added,